I was sent this Am I the A-hole post from a woman. And one of the things that I say about women posting in this Am I the A-hole subreddit, they're simply looking for validation for feeling normal human emotions. She says, Am I the a-hole because I left my autistic husband? And I'm totally sure she is not the a-hole for this, but let's go ahead and check out the post. All right, so she's 32. Mark is 35. So she says, So I've been married to Mark for 5 years, together for 7. Mark is autistic, officially diagnosed in adulthood when we met and fell in love. I knew there'd be challenges like social misunderstandings, routines, etc. I've tried really hard to be a supportive partner. I've learned a lot about autism, joined online support groups, and worked on my communication to match his needs. But things have changed over the years, and now I'm questioning everything. Lately, Mark has been making frequent comments about my appearance. Things like, You looked thinner before you started that new job, or Babe, you should work out and drop some weight. At first, I chalked it up to him being blunt, but then it got more personal. He'd say things like, I'm not as attracted to you when you gain weight, or other women your age seem to care more about how they look. Whenever I brought this up, he'd say, I'm autistic. I say what I think. I don't do fake compliments, or you're trying to police how I communicate. That's ableist. It wasn't just the comments though, as he started exploding over small things like plans changing or me being too emotional during arguments because of the things he kept saying that made me insecure. One time I cried after he criticized my body in front of his friends, and he told me I was being over dramatic again. Anytime I asked for some accountability, it became about his autism. I don't regulate emotions like you do, or you're expecting neurotypical behavior, and that's unfair. But then I noticed something strange. He was perfectly polite and even charming at work events or around certain friends. He can control his tone and avoid saying inappropriate things when it mattered. When I pointed this out, he claimed he was masking and couldn't keep it up at home. Fair. But the more I looked at it, the more it seemed like he wasn't struggling. He just didn't care how I felt. So I left him last month after a particularly cruel comment about my body, something he later told our mutual friends, but changed it up to make himself look better. But since I don't have any proof to deny what he said, my mutual friends believe that I left a disabled man for being disabled, that I couldn't handle the realities of autism. But honestly, I feel like he was using his diagnosis as a shield against basic respect. So, am I the a hole for leaving a man who is autistic? You are absolutely not an a hole for leaving any man. Because the thing is, staying with the man who is autistic, I think, is ableist as well, because this we're not staying in relationships out of pity because someone has a disability. Absolutely not. People with disabilities can absolutely be a-holes, and this man was cruel to you, and you don't have to stay with somebody simply because they have a disability. Them having a disability doesn't mean that they have to be jerks and be cruel to you. Absolutely not. Y'all had to know I was going to come back to this part. You're trying to police how I communicate. That's ableist. Because this is what they do with their therapy speak as well. They get some terms and then they start to use it as weapons against you. Like, I don't know if this, yeah, this totally could be Darvo. He is reversing it. Now she is the problem. She's bringing something that is completely valid. Like, you keep talking mess about my body. I do not like this. And now she's becoming the problem. He's reversing it. And I know that I tell you the definition of Darvo each time because I don't know who's new that's watching the page. But Darvo stands for deny, attack, reverse victim offender. And he is doing the reverse victim offender. He's thinking that he's communicating and that he can talk cruelly about her body. She brings it up and says, This is cruel. I do not like this. And he's like, No, you're being ableist because I'm autistic. And now that's what he's doing. He's using this against her because she wants to break up with him, or she did break up with him, wants to leave. And now it's like, simply because I'm talking mess about her body. Okay, obviously he's not going to admit that, but acting like you have to mask simply to not talk mess. I do not know. I am neurotypical in this sense, so I don't know how much people have to mask to not be cruel. But I know that I have some neurodivergent women in my network. So please tell me, do you tend to be extra cruel to somebody about their body because you're blunt and that's how you communicate? Or, I mean, just chime in the comments for someone like me. Or is it being ableist to think that they should have to have some decency where it comes to the partners in your life? Please explain it to me in the comments. But let's go ahead and look at some of the comments. Kalak Mac says, your instincts and beliefs are spot on. You left an abusive man who happens to be autistic, not the a-hole. Imaginary Bag says, just because he has a disability doesn't mean he can't be an a-hole. I've worked with autistic people for nearly 20 years, and I can easily assure you that is not how autism works. He's definitely weaponizing his disability. Good for you for refusing to put up with it anymore. Gracie's mom, going on 83, says, around 15 years ago, I was working with kids with special needs. I said that one of our kids was being a jerk to another one of our students. He would make fun of him and take his thing. I was told I couldn't call him a jerk because he had Down syndrome. My response was, I'm not going to deny part of him being human because he has Down syndrome. Having a disability doesn't mean you can't be a jerk. And her husband sure sounds like one. That's exactly what I said. And I do believe that you are like giving them special accommodations for their disability when you deny that they can be all of that. So we're not doing that because I believe that that is ableist to do that. I'm pretty sure that that's what that is. Beth says this, being a jerk and being anything else are not mutually exclusive. Explanations aren't excuses. Unfair Sale says, I have a daughter that has Down syndrome. She also has blonde hair. Two things can be true. Her husband can have autism and he can be a jerk. She should leave him because he's a jerk. Whispering Pastel says, exactly. Having a disability doesn't exempt someone from being held accountable for their behavior. Recognizing someone's humanity means acknowledging both their strengths and their flaws, and that includes calling out harmful actions. You handled that situation with fairness and integrity, and OP is absolutely not the a-hole. And Read the Thing says, exactly. A certain percentage of the population is autistic. A certain percentage of the population are a-holes. The overlap in the Venn diagram between a-holes and autistic people isn't bigger than the overlap between a-holes and any other demographic group. See, now we're bringing in Venn diagrams. I love this. Abandoned Rain says, as he mentioned, masking is definitely entirely possible. He's fine around coworkers. Masking symptoms is pretty normal. However, he isn't just dropping a mask around her. He's being a grade A jerk because he doesn't care about her feelings or input. Also, a good thing to note, narcissists are capable of masking too. Charming and kind around coworkers in the public. Terrible to their partners or family behind doors. And then Funny Repeat honed in on, just because he has a disability does not mean he can't be an a-hole. This person says, as an a-hole, I can confirm this statement. I think this might be a man. This is Which Key. He says, well, hold on. He might be being an a-hole or he might just be being honest, but weaponizing his disability is just far too strong. The use of that term says much about the place that you have ended up in terms of how you see the people you work with, as the places this guy has ended up in terms of how he sees himself and his challenges in life and how he relates to his partner. So he cannot be weaponizing his disability. That's just a bridge too far. Let's act like people don't weaponize whatever they can weaponize in order to get the reaction or to control the situation how they want. So he got a bunch of down votes. Imaginary Bag says, strongly disagree. You've never seen a kid who insists they can't do anything because they're autistic. You call them out on it and they grin as they're caught. Again, autism doesn't mean you lack cognitive ability to behave manipulatively. And then he just says, you need a holiday and a rethink, because these people just simply want to always give them an excuse, and everybody is not going to let them fly on that. All right, so I had to get to this part from Miss Whatsit. She says, this is brilliant. I'm so stealing this. I didn't leave a mentally ill man. I left an abusive man who happened to be mentally ill. I didn't leave him because he had kids. I left an abusive man who happened to have kids. Then she says, I didn't leave him for not having enough money. I left an abusive man who was also careless with money. Then she says, I didn't leave him for not being neat enough. I left an abusive man who was also lazy and believed in a sexist division of labor. We needed to talk about that because sometimes two things can be true. You can definitely leave for whatever reason makes the most sense for you. And then Sandy Butthole says, autism is not mental illness. This person just happens to be a piece of poo. Same as some dead people were pricks. He is too. That isn't an autistic trait. So I'm glad that this post was sent to me. I do think that this is something that we need to talk about because people are being diagnosed into their adult years. They will be in relationships. So this is something that we need to discuss. So go ahead, join the conversation. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.